Broadcast. Boom, there we go. Call this meeting to order. Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The topic for tonight's work session is Armour Road Complete Street Next Steps. And what we'd like to do is kind of revisit with you on the Armour Road project, our next steps, and some conversations that we are having with the road district on a potential mill and overlay project. So I'm actually going to hand it now over to Sarah Copeland and Anthony Sands.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We thought it might be helpful, since many of you are new, just to give you a quick overview of the Armour Road Complete Street Plan. The plan divided Armour Road from Buchanan to Ozark into three zones. So the transition zone is from Fayette to Knox, and really where a lot of the biggest changes came about. The plan, though, includes not just a plan for bike lanes, but also for street trees and outdoor seating and mid-block crossings and other improvements, because we are focused on this as a complete street for all users. So for people who are walking or biking or getting on the bus, everyone who's using Armour Road. Because one of the key things we found in doing this plan was that Armour Road really was a barrier between the north side of North Kansas City and the south side of North Kansas City. And we want people to be able to safely cross the street and make connections between destinations on each side. So the plan identified 5 next steps. Step number 1 was improvements to the transition zone and the commercial zone out to the east to Ozark. Step number 2 was to conduct educational outreach. We kind of did this step first because it was the easiest. Step number 3 was our downtown parking management study, which we did in-house immediately after this plan was finished. Step number 4 was placemaking improvements along Armour Road. Step number 5 was improvements to the downtown zone. Honestly, I'm not sure when we might ever get to step number 5, but we've been working hard on steps 1 through 4. So that's a very quick overview to the plan. We are waiting to get our 2021 traffic count report, but we did get this little a teaser earlier or over the weekend that our pedestrian counts at Armour and Iron have gone up quite a bit this year. So we're seeing more people walking on Armour Road and presumably more people biking as well, although we haven't seen the report yet, as a sign that some of the work we're doing is working to get more people out there using Armour Road. So we're excited about this little preview and can't wait to see the rest of the report. So we have done some of the work that was directed by council in December and January when we had the work sessions. Some of this has been completed by city crews. So Public Works painted the noses of the bump out islands at Armour and Iron yellow, and they replaced the feather reed grasses that had gotten tall with lower landscaping. The grasses that they dug out of those landscaping beds were then transplanted to our parking lot at 13th and in Burlington. They adjusted the markings for the turns into the post office drop boxes, which was another adjustment that you all directed that was completed. So ongoing work. We kind of divided the work that you all directed over the winter into two groups, work that we thought we could do in-house and then work that we knew would need to be bid out to be done by a contractor. So the right turn lane at Fayette was work that was to be done by a contractor. We do have the plans completed for that, so it would be ready for bidding. The bike lane visibility of markings for the conflict zones, that was something we thought we could do in-house, but this is where then we started to, things started to slow down. We didn't want to put down a lot of markings and then discovered that the road district was going to come through and repave everything. So Anthony really did the bulk of this work in reaching out to them to figure out, did they have plans to repave Armour Road this year or next year, or what was going on there? And so we'll come back to this item, but this was other work that you directed. We did a lot of work then looking into delineators. We had discussed lots of different options, because what we heard from you all was you liked something that was taller so that it would be more visible to drivers. But you all did not like the delineators, and we definitely got that message when we discussed it again in July. No delineators. So have been looking into lots of different options. because we need to replace the delineators, but also those are important to provide protection to people in the bike lanes and to ensure that we don't get vehicles encroaching into that area, which would be unsafe for bicyclists. So there are a few locations where we've identified a real need to have that protection. So phase 2 is planned to be the Howell Street intersection improvements. This also is work that's ready for bidding. It would be to install the landscape islands that would replace the delineators and decorative crosswalks. Phase 3, we have, since the beginning of this project, been planning this project as 4 phases. Phase 3 would be the Gentry and Knox intersection improvements, so adding those bump out islands at those intersections. This graphic shows you we did that pedestrian refuge at Knox as part of phase 1. The bump out island at Knox would be on the south side of the street. So to give you an idea of what that would be like. And then phase 4 improvements were the mid-block crossing between Macon and Ozark. And that kind of shows you Macon is there on the left and Ozark on the right, kind of the location of that mid-block crossing. So the budget that's before you tonight consolidates all of these phases into next year, the next fiscal year. So the idea is that we would finish all of this work and just get it done next year instead of further phasing it out. So we would be finished and could, move on to other things. Anthony has found another possible protection for the bike lanes, these low concrete walls, instead of using curb stops. You want to talk about these?
Well, sure. So, the feasibility of these, we're still researching. There's going to be a lot of, from what Sarah was saying about the delineators not being the most popular option, but still needing a vertical element that is visible to drivers, and actually stands up, during snow and fall and different events that doesn't blend in with the road. Having that vertical element is extremely important, but there's not a lot of great options out there. So we did some research looking for different things. We stumbled across this option, which is used in Toronto. We're researching what the feasibility is of actually making it here or getting it from there and seeing if it could be a valuable or viable option. So again, still kind of in the research phase, but something we're looking into. Sorry.
Councilmember Saber.
Looking at that picture, I see the initial problem is that it's right, in this case, it's right up against the line. And that's the problem we had with the existing delineators. And again, I go back to the project that you're familiar with on Gillum Road, in which the delineators or whatever barriers they have are set back from the line maybe 18 inches. So that they're visible and it clearly delineates, as a delineator should, where the roadway is, but is less likely to be hit on a turn or a movement by the car, and would not start getting the ugly, scuffed up, damaged look that the existing pylon delineators we have. That would be the only change I would recommend for that.
Absolutely. And it's hard to control where a driver's going to go. Sometimes they're going to bump into it. But this slide here shows the areas where they're looking at replacement for delineation. And we're kind of lucky with, as opposed to Gillum Road, where we have a little bit wider transition zone between the two. And so, we can definitely look at putting those off-center, or on-center, basically, so they're not too close to the line there.
Clevenger.
Couple of questions. I think those were, if I read in the memo correctly, were they 18 inches high or were they?
They're about 1.5 feet, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then how wide are they? Because it looked kind of wide in the picture there. I agree with what Tony was saying, maybe not putting it right on the line if we can. Yeah, back there. And with the width on that as far as, do you happen to know?
Off the top of my head, no. I'd have to look up that information for you.
Okay.
Again, we're still looking at the feasibility of if this could even be an option.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Councilmember Tull.
I love it. I'm looking at it and thinking maybe even Tanemic or somebody could paint it if visibility was an issue. But I think this gives safety and will be very visible.
And one of the feasibility things that we're looking at is some kind of potential public art spectrum to these.
Ooh, I like it. Well done. I hope this works out. I think it checks all the boxes.
Councilmember Roberts.
I just had a question about the pedestrian counts for the cross streaks. How are those counted? Are those like pushes, or is somebody out there actually counting people?
We actually, it's done by video. So
Oh.
they put up cameras, and then it counts every single person who, in car, bike, that goes through the intersection.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. I like that we're going to do some art. That was my first thought, is like, ooh, it'd be really awesome if we could continue our kind of streetscape that we're doing with buildings. And I'm taking it, you pulled it from this Toronto cyclist video where it was like, car hits concrete barrier and doesn't kill cyclists. Winning. So I found that article. I was like, that's where the barrier is. So that's fantastic. So I'm in support of that.
I definitely appreciate the deep dive you've done into finding this. You know, it
Amen.
was a challenging ask from council. It's like, we want the best of all of these like 20 different things, and I think you found something that could achieve a lot of what we were hearing, what we were saying, what you were hearing. There you go. Further council member comments. Councilmember Saper.
I like this generally very much. However, the council did actually ask for some changes, last January? And people keep asking about it. It seems to, and I also agree that it'd be better to do things once instead of redoing things. That makes a lot of sense. But since it's gone on for so long now, maybe with a few gallons of paint, we could make a right turn on Fayette. And that would have to be redone, but we're talking about a few gallons of paint maybe. That's not a huge expenditure. Number two, I suspect that city crews could unbolt the existing delineators, move them, as I suggested earlier, about 18 inches in from the line, and maybe spray paint them so that when we finally get to this, probably next spring, people will have had a chance at least to see some improvement, some of what we've asked for. And those costs would be fairly minimal. Is that a possibility? I would suggest that at least.
We would have to, as far as the restriping of the turn lane, we would have to really look at that. That might have to go hand in hand with restriping the entire intersection there. We could look at the feasibility of that, but that would have to be something we have to look at.
Putting that in, we would have to put in some kind of protection, because we don't want people to cut into the right turn lane too soon, because there's a bus stop there. And KCATA won't leave a bus stop on a right turn lane. So that location, I mean, I'm sure that the crews might be able to do something, but we would have to install something there. And, we're not ready to commit to the low concrete walls.
Councilmember Smith, then Toll.
Yeah, it's definitely not just a couple gallons of paint to redo the turn lane. Like, you saw the engineering drawings. Like, we gotta get that out to bid and do it right. I mean, it has been a long time. We've heard some frustration with the residents, but because we've gotten as far as we are, and there's been a lot of work done, I think we do it right. I don't think we rush through this. I think we make sure that we get the right product. Anthony and Sarah have done a great job identifying this. We'll see if it's feasible, but it's not going to be that simple. And the movement of the delineators, that's not something I've heard until like really just now, is the 18-inch movement. It's just people hate the sticks. They just don't like the look at all. I've not once heard that they want to move it over 18 inches. So that's something completely new. So I think we're going to have this figured out here in the next little bit, and then we'll get it ordered and put in.
Councilmember Toll.
I was just going to say, we did look at the green paint for painting the entire strip of the cycling track there, and it was much more expensive than we thought it was going to be, which is why we went back to the intersections, because it has to be a special paint, I think. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just remember thinking, ooh, that was a lot higher than we thought, and we backed off, not trying to do the entire lane. But I think probably the question at hand is, maybe I'm jumping the gun, whether we want to do all of this together.
That's what I was going to ask next. Is this the conclusion of the presentation portion?
Yeah, as far as implementation, so that's kind of the idea that we're proposing is that, as Sarah said, there was, several phases, and phase 2 would have been next, 3 and 4 in this year. So bringing all these together as one big project, doing it all at once in the spring of next year, and then also coupling that with a potential mill and overlay of Armour Road from Fayette to Lynn. So that's basically where the downtown transition zone starts and to where Tay's Hamburgers is. So again, coupling this all together with that, we've reached out to the road district to see if there could be a cost share potential. They think there is a possibility to work together. We're just negotiating those last steps.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Question on that as far as the cost share, and I know you're in the negotiation process. How does that play out as far as us getting an estimate of what it would cost on the mill and overlay, and then that way deciding what the road district would help with and what we would pay? Or is there going to be like request for bid to put out on it, or are we going to kind of, do we have an estimate, and that's what we're working off of with working with the road district?
We have an estimate that we put together in-house. We're estimating about $500,000 to mill and overlay that section from Fayette to Lynn. So we would ask for a 50-50 cost share of $250.
Call it 700. No, I'm
So-
just kidding. Just kidding.
Add 20% to that? And, yeah, okay. All right,
I mean,
thank you,
in
Anthony.
the spirit of transparency, when we bid out this project, we would bid that out separately so that the road district would have a clear understanding of what that mill and overlay would be in the overall bid.
Perfect. Councilmember Saper, then Smith.
Yeah, I understand the argument that Councilman Smith made and others. However, this would probably happen during the spring and summer of next year, of next calendar year. And that would mean that would be like almost 18 months after the council authorized these changes. And people are starting to say, what's going on? And what I'm suggesting is to at least give people some kind of sense that we're doing something that that they've wanted and that the council has authorized. I'm not talking about the whole project. I'm talking about a right turn lane. And that shouldn't take an engineering study.
I
Thank you.
understand the frustration. Like I said, some of the challenges is there is some engineering with it, and that just has to do with city liability. And some of the points that Sarah brought up is that there is a bus station there, so there are some considerations with our partners, KCATA, on the safety of their people with that particular turn. I understand the frustration. Again, some of the reasons why we consolidated these projects, it was strung out over several fiscal years. We actually combined them all into this proposed budget that City Council will be considering this evening. A lot of that really was to optimize tax dollars, to put all of those projects into one. We're doing one single bid, and that way we're not having to pay for multiple mobilization fees that often come with these style of contracts. There was also some engineering consideration that the City Council had authorized. It takes a little bit of time to do. So we definitely hear and understand the frustration. Some of it also was the delineators. We definitely heard that the City Council was not satisfied, so we kind of sharpened our pencil and had to go back for some of that as well.
All right, going around this way, Councilmember Smith.
So you mentioned the downtown area as phase 5, but we're looking at consolidating phase 1 through 4. How does that play in with Confluence and what we're doing with the downtown refresh? Is that it's completely separate, or what's going on with that?
If you read through the Armour Road Complete Street Plan, it's clear that before we would move forward on step 5 and making any changes to Armour Road in the downtown zone, we would need to have more consensus about making those changes. I don't think we're ever going to get that.
I don't disagree with you. So the Confluence piece is fully separate from, okay.
Yes.
So I was mixing the two in my head. So that is still planning to happen this year as well, is that right?
November.
Okay, so we'll be downtown, and then all of the transition phase, if we authorize all this, it would all kind of happen in the next year or so. The mill and overlay, all the
Yeah.
changes we're talking about, and the downtown refresh.
Yeah, like I said, in the mill and overlay project is not what you're going to find in this proposed budget.
Right.
That component would have to come forward should the city council give us a head nod that, yes, that's something that you guys would like us to pursue and to add into the bid documents for the spring. Again, asphalt companies actually just kind of roll up their sidewalks after a certain point in time. You can no longer get asphalt, so we've missed out on the asphalt for this particular season. And that's just because of where we are on a calendar. So we would look to bid, be ready to bid as soon as possible in the early spring for both Phase 2, 3, 4, and mill and overlay. The hope would be to be very early and to optimize those very hungry contractors that want to bid on this particular project. Sometimes when you get later into the season, you stop getting optimal cost bids back because they are so busy that the cost just naturally goes up.
As soon as the ice thaws, let's get it moving.
Councilmember Clark.
I just want to reiterate that it's a smart use of funding. I know, Anthony, there is the frustration around all of this, but you're also forgetting that we went through COVID and we're still in it. And so it kind of shrinks that 18 months into just sort of like, where did the year go? Because we did have to shift funding around. Everybody had to be flexible. Lots of projects got tabled. There's a lot that happened. So I think it's kind of unfair to just really label it to the timeline of 18 months ago when it really feels like 3 months ago, 6 months ago, because of the scale of how things are happening. So I think it's good for us to keep the pace, and it's more just about managing that message that we're trying to judiciously use the funds, and saying, like, by condensing things, we're saving money, and that should matter as well. We're trying to do our best. They're trying to do their best, and we're trying to do our best to support. That's it.
Councilmember Palumbi.
Yeah, I was just going to add to kind of what Amy said. From my understanding of the delineators and the dislike of them, I don't think it's going to matter if they're red, white, or blue, if they're painted or not. People don't like them. So I don't think changing their color is going to change anything. And I do think that this is probably a preferable option for us. The only other question I have is we're saying we're not ready to commit to them. I guess what is our concern? Is it a cost thing or?
It could be a cost,
Okay.
it's feasibility altogether. I mean, they're a product that's not made here, so we've reached out to a manufacturer to see if they can be. They're very similar to other things that are made by these pre-tech manufacturers, but there's a lot of research that has to go into them.
Do we have an estimate of what this would take? Because, I mean, I guess this Toronto road that has it, I don't know if we have any kind of estimate as to what this would cost.
As far as cost, I could dive into that and see what they got into, but local, no, we don't have that right now.
Thank you.
All right. Any further councilmember comments? Councilmember Toll.
Probably clear, but I just wanted to state I am full support of putting it all together. I think it makes financial sense. It saves us money, and we get to do it now instead of later because every year we know it's going to get more and more expensive. So thank you for the work that you guys have done. Thank you for looking at an alternative to protect the bike lane and to make this safe. So I really appreciate it, and I am definitely on board. Good job talking to the road district. They're on board too, it sounds like. So well done, everybody.
All about calling candidates what raised that phone and pager bill. No. All right. Staff need any other guidance, or are you guys good? You feel like that was it? I feel like I heard consensus on all 4 of the main recommendations here.
No, I feel like we have enough information. So our plan moving forward would be to incorporate everything into one bid early this spring, have the engineering, have all of the documents ready to go early this year, and then come back to the city council with what the free market is born for the price of the project.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. No further. Last chance, and adjourn.